for Thursday. Where am I? Thursday going.
Wonderful. How are you?
Good. Don Day, the weather guy, and I were talking about these AI and these deep fakes. The new actress, the hot actress now, Tilly Norwood, who isn't even real. It's so weird. And we're going to have to make a whole batch of laws just to deal with what could be done with fakes, with deep fakes, with AI, things you can't trust and believe. It's so odd.
I think so, too. The reality is that laws typically follow in the wake of changes in technology, and that's what we're seeing in spades with AI and the other advances that are happening. And in reality, it's across the board, whether it's in the medical field using AI or in, as you indicate, the deep fakes and the way that people could be slandered, libeled with accusations of saying things that they never said, with people making videos. It's an exciting time, but it's also a bit of a scary time as well.
Yes, it is. All right, we're going to cover a lot of ground, starting with the fact that we're not covering any ground. The feds are shut down, government shutdown, stalled in the Senate, obviously, and I know we want to play the blame game. Democrats are holding things up on what they say is these expiring subsidies of Obamacare. That's a worthy cause. I don't want my health care rates to go up, and I think they're probably going. Everything goes up, but where are we? Is there an end to this?
I hope that there is an end, because I don't think that that's actually what is driving this. I think what's driving this is the I Hate America rally that is going to be held this Saturday in Washington, D.C. And I think that has as much to do with the obstreperousness of the Democrats as anything else. I also would, if you want to talk about those subsidies, that's fine. What I think it demonstrates is that Obamacare has absolutely failed. And it has resulted in exactly what we were trying to convince people of at the time that they were voting on this 15 years ago. There were many of us on the conservative side who kept saying you cannot have a government paid program. Every time that the government gets involved in healthcare, they then don't focus on providing healthcare. They focus on controlling costs, and costs have absolutely exploded under Obamacare because it is a failed policy. So what are the subsidies? Prior to COVID, prior to when the Democrats used reconciliation in 2022 to pass through these subsidies, unlimited subsidies, by the way, and by that I mean it doesn't matter what you earn. You can get subsidies under Obamacare because of what the Democrats did with reconciliation in 2002. But recognizing that this was going to break the bank, recognizing that this would cost hundreds of billions of dollars right now, the price tag's probably over $500 billion to extend these subsidies to anybody who wants them, regardless of their income, is going to cost about $500 billion. Recognizing that it was the Democrats that put a sunset on that of December 2025 without Republican support. The Democrats were the ones who put the sunset of December 2025. They're now screaming and yelling and saying, we have to extend these subsidies. But keep in mind, for anyone who makes 4 times the poverty level or less, your subsidies will continue. That was baked into the original Obamacare law. So this only applies to that segment of the population that makes more than 4 times the poverty level. So you're talking about people could make $500,000 a year right now and get Obamacare subsidies from the American taxpayer. What is happening in December is that cohort of people will no longer be entitled to the subsidies. But again, that isn't what this is about. What this is about is the Democrats' effort to stop the Donald Trump agenda and the agenda of the Republicans in the House and the Senate. It's really that simple.
Let's talk about news. Exciting news, positive news. Just days ago, President Trump's commitment to stand with Israel in the face of barbaric terrorist organization Hamas. Hostages freed after 2 years. This should have been like dominant headline news, but I think left-leaning media is just downplaying it because it's a Trump victory. This is good news.
This is good news. This is great news. It was an awfully emotional day watching those families as they greeted their family members who had been taken hostage over 2 years ago. This is exciting. It is exciting for the entire world. It was a great day. This is a step forward in terms of Middle East peace. Whether it's going to hold, I don't know the answer to that, but this was the first step and it was an important one. Also, you just have to recognize when you look at those poor men, those gentlemen who have been returned, and the torture that they have been subjected to over the last 2 years, anyone who has supported Hamas, anyone who has said that it was Israel committing genocide, that Israel did not have the right to win this war, has been proven to be absolutely wrong. And their reaction, as you have pointed out, Jake, demonstrates that this was not about this idea that Israel was the bad guy in all of this. This was more spreading of anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish, anti-Israel rhetoric and propaganda. This was a great day. I'm excited. I know some of the family members who had members taken hostage, and I'll tell you what, Monday was pretty exciting.
Other news of the day, and this is a little disturbing, I think. The UN wants to ban the burning of fossil fuels and fine countries that do so. That certainly sounds contrary to Wyoming's prosperity and a bit of a global stretch, a real reach. What's going on there with the UN?
So the UN has come up with this idea that any country that produces or uses fossil fuels should be subject to paying reparations to other countries. The irony and the absurdity of that is that every country in the world uses fossil fuels, whether they produce them or not. Our prosperity is dependent upon fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas, etc. So the idea that they're going to do this, I think that it really exposes the dark underbelly of who and what the UN is and has become. Really, it is a globalist organization that wants to control all aspects of the economy, and really the target is the United States. The target is not the Mideast. The target is not China. The target is not Russia. The target is the United States. And this is a way for them to redistribute our money, our taxpayer dollars, to other countries that they believe are more deserving of these funds and these resources. So I have introduced a bill making it illegal for American taxpayer money to be paid in reparations of any sort, because every once in a while the UN again raises its ugly head and starts talking about a variety of different ways in which they want to redistribute the resources that the United States has. I don't buy into it. I don't think the American public does. And so I have introduced a bill to block those efforts.
We're talking to Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. She joins us monthly. We might have to increase the amount of time you're on. There's so much to cover. Yeah, if the EU wants to install solar panels all the way up and down the Eiffel Tower, that's great. That's good on them. Just don't reach into American pockets to pay for it. I like that. Let's turn.
Well, Jake, I want to point something out that happened this week that I think is absolutely stunning. The city of Hamburg in Germany, one of the largest cities in the country, had a referendum on Sunday, and only 43% of the people in the community actually voted in it, but they voted to essentially deindustrialize. So this is a large city. It's an incredibly important port city in Germany, and the people there have voted to turn themselves into a third world country and return themselves to the time before the use of fossil fuels. They are destroying their industries. They voted to deindustrialize. When you think about it and you think about the automobiles that have been manufactured in Germany over the years, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, etc., those companies are no longer able to manufacture in Germany because they don't have the energy resources available to be able to do so. That's what the United Nations wants to do to every country on Earth, and most specifically the United States. And we're not going to have any of that nonsense.
That is crazy. Last month, you were super busy. We'll talk about all the places you got around to in state. But last month, September, a busy month, representing citizens that are wrapped up in federal agency casework. Whether you've got problems with the IRS, the VA, the USDA, whatever it is, and you were able to return money to citizens, money talks. What is that all about? What are you doing on behalf of the American citizen?
I'm going to give all the credit to my staff because I have the very best staff that of anybody in Congress. They're absolutely phenomenal. And what they do is what we refer to as casework. And that is if someone has a problem with the IRS or the Social Security Administration, the VA, the USDA, whatever agency it may be, if they contact my office, then we can open a case file and see if we can resolve that matter. It may be that they're not issuing a permit for the last 5 years. The BLM not issuing a permit, we can get involved in that. As of the end of September, we have returned over $10.5 million to the citizens of Wyoming. And again, that might be a check for $800 of an IRS tax refund that had been stalled or being reimbursed by the VA. It might be $2,500 or $7,000 or $650. We have resolved over 4,000 cases on behalf of the citizens of Wyoming, and we are now right on the cusp of returning $11 million to the citizens of Wyoming. So, I'm very proud of the work that my staff has done in that regard.
Congresswoman, we haven't talked to you since the Charlie Kirk assassination. I mean, what do we make of this? What kind of country are we? What is this where we take up arms instead of dialoguing? Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. I don't know where to begin. You start.
He was a friend of mine, and I knew Charlie quite well and had numerous opportunities to engage with him personally, as well as to speak at some of the Turning Point USA events in Arizona and elsewhere. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I'm still entirely dumbfounded that something like that could happen in America. But this is what happens when the radicals start arguing that words are violence and violence are words. We have gone off the rails. And I think that what you're seeing is that there is a segment of our society that has been radicalized. I think Antifa falls into that category, and people along those lines. I think if you look at his life and his lifestyle, you can understand that something really became unhinged for the young man who did this. I'm not excusing him. He's responsible for this, but at the same time, we have people in our society that are working to try to create this kind of an environment of fear. And in reality, the kinds of phone calls and letters that we receive sometimes are absolutely unacceptable. They're off the rails. And nobody who goes into public service should be subjected to threats of violence against themselves or their families, yet it happens. We need to go back to exactly what Charlie Kirk stood for, which was faith, understanding really what are the important issues in the United States, what are the important issues in our lives, but also being able to dialogue with people and disagree with them respectfully and attempt to convince them of your side in using those kinds of techniques. So it really has been a tragedy. The thing is, what is going to come of this is going to be so much bigger than probably Charlie Kirk himself ever could be, because we're no longer going to tolerate this kind of behavior. We're going to call people out for their rhetoric and for the behavior that they're engaging in.
Yeah, we certainly need to come together as a country, heal as a country, yet there is a divide politically. There are Republicans and Democrats. What do you make of this disturbing news that in the Biden era, the Biden administration was spying on Republicans during the J6 hearings? During the Biden era, Google and Meta and socials were instructed to deliberately silence politically disfavoring speech towards Democrats. That is far-reaching. That's weird stuff.
So being on the Judiciary Committee, we have been uncovering this and exposing this for over 3 years. Now, the fact that they actually were tracking our senators and are including U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming, as well as a representative, the people have been identified. I personally don't believe that those are the only people that they were accessing their cell phone information, because there's no common thread between the people that have so far been identified. It's just that Kash Patel and the FBI have been able to uncover these documents. But you're absolutely correct. This is such a blatant violation of the mores, our Constitution, our laws, and an abuse of power beyond anything that I think we've ever seen. Prior, the Watergate has always been the standard by which we measure things, and then we refer to everything as something with gate at the end because of how bad Watergate was. That pales in comparison to what the Biden administration did and the way that they were surveilling members of the House and of the U.S. Senate. I have introduced what's called the First Amendment Accountability Act. We may have talked about this before, but what it would do is it's fashioned after a federal law that was adopted after the Civil War to protect freed slaves. And the idea is that any person under color of federal law who violates someone's First Amendment rights, their freedom of speech, the freedom of press, freedom of religion, to peaceably assemble and to petition your government, any federal employee who was to violate your First Amendment right You could sue them personally for damages, injunctive relief, and for your attorney's fees. I am pushing forward with this right now, and we're moving forward with it in the Senate as well. This needs to be stopped. We need to make sure that we do not allow our government to be weaponized against us in the manner in which the Biden administration clearly abused their power, clearly violated First Amendment rights, and we need to make sure that we're holding people accountable so this does not happen again.
One last thing, Congresswoman Hageman, let's get closer to home while representing the American people in D.C. and the Republican Party. You've been hanging out in Wyoming, your favorite state, ribbon cutting at the Sublette County Health opening. That was cool. You're hanging out with Omega Precision Firearms in Gillette. Good folks up there. And the Eastern Wyoming College, they just had the Trucks Are for Girls deal in Douglas. How was that? Empowering young women to drive trucks or become congresswoman, whatever.
And that was a lot of fun. And there were quite a few young girls there that I was able to talk to and talk about my history on the industrial side of the ledger, if you will. I used to work highway construction in the early 1980s when I was going to college. So I got to talk about that. Just over the last couple of days, I've been in Kemmerer, Cokeville, Evanston, Lyman, Rollins. I've been in Gillette, Lusk, Torrington. As you indicate, we were in Pinedale. I've been in Casper. We have been all over the state. I continue to travel extensively and make sure that I'm out there meeting with students. I got to do an assembly in Cokeville for the high school just the other day, and that was a ton of fun to spend some time with our students and talk about their involvement in our government.
Awesome. Well, it's great to see. Whenever you can get home to Wyoming, it's got to be better than being out there doing